Welcome to the Payday with Rayray podcast, hosted by yours truly, Rachel Bell. I'm here to make your life easier as an entrepreneur and teach you everything I've learned about building multiple seven-figure online businesses. And on this podcast, I'll be giving you my best advice, trainings, and mindset shifts so you can grow your business and, most importantly, make every day your payday. Howdy hoo! Welcome back to another episode of Payday with Rayray. It's so good to have you here. And it's really good to have our guest of this episode here as well. I'll introduce her in just a moment, but our guest this episode is someone so special and so unique. Her name is Suzy Batiz, and some of you may know her as the founder of Poopourri, which is such an interesting company. It's basically an essential oil company that masks the smell of your shit. So I don't know anyone who doesn't need that. It's basically a household cleaning industry that she's been involved in. And she also started another company called Supernatural for cleaning products. But throughout Suzy's entire journey, she's been a revolutionary explorer of infinite potential. And she calls this the playground of life. And she lives to inspire others and bring them along for the ride. And that is something that we both have in common. We view life as this playground of infinite adventures and potentials. One thing that we talk about in this episode is how we use different modalities of healing and inner growth and, personal development, if that's what you want to call it, to expand our leadership capacity in entrepreneurship and so much more. So Suzy is not your run-of-the-mill entrepreneur for a variety of different reasons. She's experienced some of life's lowest lows, some of which include poverty, sexual and domestic abuse, depression, 2 bankruptcies, and a suicide attempt, which led to what she now calls the luxury of losing everything. So she dove into harnessing the power of her intuition, and her journey, which has been crazy, led her to building her businesses from the ground up without ever taking $1 of outside investment. She has since then harnessed the power of true transformation and turned her alive ideas, which we'll discuss in this episode, into a $500 million empire. So Suzy is really unique as well because she believes that money is simply energy, which we also share that belief, and focusing on your energetic state, your abundance in all areas of your life naturally flows. Your energetic state improves and you will lead an alive as shit life. So she wants every person who's listening to know that they already have everything within them to make their dreams come true. And she's been spreading this message far and wide and has been featured in leading publications like Forbes, CNBC, Fast Company, and Entrepreneur. And she was even named one of Forbes' richest self-made women in America as of 2019. She was also named Entrepreneur of the Year by EY in 2017 and Conscious Company's World-Changing Woman in 2019. So many more amazing little titles and just notoriety abounds in this woman's life, and for good reason. I think that in this episode, you're not only going to experience such a profound sense of self and belief in that self that you identify with, but also a large opening into what really creates a compelling brand and how to get everyone on board to this brand identity that you're creating and how to make it last not only just a year or 6 months, but a lifetime. Suzy has gone through it all, and in this episode, she's breaking it all down for us. So without any further ado, enjoy the conversation between me and Suzy Batiz. All right. Thank you so much for joining the show, Suzy. How are you doing today?
Doing awesome. I'm in sunny California. It's beautiful today.
One of the things I love most about you on your Instagram stories is how profoundly raw and real you are. Because yesterday, I think I tuned in and you were like, I had a heartbreaking moment today. And I was listening to this Icaros from an Ayahuasca ceremony, and you just went into how it just cracked you open, and you were just being so real, but so grounded about your experience within that. And knowing your past and knowing a little bit about what you've been through so many ups and downs, multiple bankruptcies, but also on the other end of that spectrum, creating a multi-million-dollar empire through Poopourri and Supernatural. You've seen it all in terms of the highs and lows in the entrepreneurial roller coaster. And one of the things that I think is so special about the way that you show up is how unfiltered you are in that regard. And I wonder sometimes how it feels to look back on at the beginning of your entrepreneurial roller coaster and reflect now with the personal development tools that you have amassed and think, wow, if I had just known that one thing, that would have made it so much easier. Do you ever have those moments?
Oh, I just did when you just said that. Actually, I was having a moment when you were like the roller coaster, and I was like, yeah, I've been through a lot of ups and downs. Like, I don't think I really feel into that. So thank you for giving me that gift. Like, oh yeah, I just got to feel the truth of that. And I just thought about that, what would I have liked to have known? Or, everything's perfect. What's amazing is I truly believe that we get whatever we need to push us to where we need to be. Whoever's listening right now in this moment, everything you did was actually perfect to get you to this moment to listen to this podcast. And who knows what'll light up inside of you. So whenever I think of life that way, there's not one thing I would change, but I do think it would help someone that's young, that's looking for learning from some wisdom that I have. And it would be that it took me my first 38 years, I didn't follow anything that was really passionate. I followed a lot of ideas. I really thought that money was going to make me happy. And I thought it was going to make me happy because I was finally going to be worth something. I was going to be valuable in the world. And when I stopped chasing money after my second bankruptcy and had my spiritual sabbatical and had to face really my life, was when I became happy. And then, of course, ironically, successful. But what I realized is what's worse than losing all your money is losing it and realize you didn't even have a good time.
And I think a lot of people can look from the external of all the bio stuff, all the magazines and the publications you've been featured in and all the success and all that stuff. But you alluded to a couple important factors in your story, which is that number one, 38 years of chasing ideas instead of aligning with your passion, and then looking back and realizing, wow, there was so much hardship in that experience and everything is still perfect just the way that it is. And standing on top of the mountain that you're now able to stand on top of, not to say that it's not equally or more difficult than standing at the valley, at the lowest low. I'm curious, what is your driving force now in this season of your life, now that you have an amassed, I think it's a $500 million empire that you're standing on top of and supporting and showing up for, and probably dozens, if not hundreds of team members that look up to you for guidance and support and leadership. What is your driving force right now when you wake up in the morning and you're like, what is my next move? What is the thing that really inspires action from you now that money is not the thing that drives you? Because I think a lot of people start off with that survival energy. We got to put food on the table. And that's the main motivating factor. And then we get there and we're like, oh, then it's 20K, then it's 50K, then it's 100K, then it's $1 million, then it's 2 million. And it never stops until we realize that comes from within. So now that you're there, I would love to just dive into your heart and know, what is your key motivating force right now?
What's really amazing is I don't feel particularly motivated for anything in the sense of what I used to think motivation was. I really have, it's almost like I'm sitting back, I'm sure you do it too. You wonderful youth, you lean back in the car and I'm always like, why aren't they sitting up looking where they're driving? Everybody's like sitting back chilling. That's the way I feel right now. And I'm more curious and I'm only interested in what truly excites me. For example, I have Poopourri, I have Supernatural, I have people want to make stories of my life and we're writing. That feels exciting. Writing's exciting. I'm getting into a cookie business. It'll go into another food business. It just feels really alive and exciting. So I don't know if I'm really motivated. What I am is I get excited about things. And that's where I place my energy. So we can call it motivation, but it's really like turning towards something that feels exciting. It's like, oh, this lights me up. I'm going to do this for a bit.
Yeah. One of the things that you've been speaking on so much recently is alive ideas in your program, Alive OS, and just this whole concept of being alive. So much so that it's permeated through my own team culture. And everyone's like, my alive idea is XYZ. And I'm like, that's a beautiful thing. Where'd you get that from? They're like, Suzy Batiz. I'm like, great. I'm interviewing her soon. So what does that mean for you? And what would you define as something that is alive and has that quality to it?
Yeah, well, I'll give you a quick little backstory. Someone was going to do a film about me, a little short film, and they said, how do you know which idea to follow? I was trying to tell them this inner pull that I have, and I was trying to describe it, and he said, I have no idea what you're talking about. So I went back to my business, and I started really getting curious again, like, how do I know which idea to follow? I just seem to know these days. And what I realized when I started dissecting everything is that I naturally went towards things that excited me. So I called Dr. Bruce Lipton and I asked him, he's a cellular biologist. And I said, are ideas alive? And he said, why do you ask? And I said, well, I have a theory that the ideas that feel alive to me actually work out and the ones that aren't. I said, I believe that's why the 75% or whatever businesses fail is because they're not birthed or born with an alive idea. And he said, everything is alive and everything's a vibration. And he taught me about resonance and dissonance. And resonance is when you put two energy waves together, and those two together create a larger energy wave together than they do apart. So it's not 1 + 1 = 2. It's 1 + 1 = 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7, depending on that match. Dissonance is when 1 + 1 = -5. It actually, dissonance is you put two energy waves together and they create less energy. So I always say it's like those people that drain you in life, or those, you keep sludging through. I always tell people, drop all that shit first, right? Drop that so you can get towards resonance. So what happened is I started noticing, and I started calling them alive ideas because they are alive. I always called my company a living dynamic organism. We call Poopourri her, a she, and we make sure that she is treated as we would a child. We just go, what would she do? Everybody in my company knows what Poopourri would do. They know what she would say. They know how she would act, how she would respond. So it's really interesting from a brand guide. So if you guys are building a brand, or women are building a brand, to go through, and the first thing I do, our brand guide for Poopourri is 65 pages. Like, it's in depth. Okay. It says, here's what she looks like. Here's the way she speaks. Here's what she would do. Here's what she would say. Here's the font guidelines. Here's whatever. So no matter how many people have gone through Poopourri, the brand has always stayed the same. So that's one of the biggest branding entrepreneurial tips I can give you, is really set that brand guide, and think of your company as a person, because a corporation is actually an entity by law, right? Look at the definition of corporation. It's an entity. So I started following when I started practicing what I called alive ideas, and I noticed there were 4 things that would happen. Number 1, I would get some sort of body sensation, like a chill bump or goosebumps, and I would be like, oh, I got chill bumps. This, like right now, I just got a little zing. It's like, oh. So that would happen. And then I would be really excited. It's like I would automatically get energy. I don't have to have that cup of coffee or something. I'm online, Googling. The third thing is the idea keeps coming back around. It does not go away. And the fourth one is synchronicity. The idea, it's like you just see it everywhere. And you're like, oh my God, I was just talking about that. And they mentioned this on the movie, or I just saw this on a billboard. So if you pay attention to those signs, so I look at, if something has those 4 qualities, then I move towards it. And it's not a thought process anymore. I just know what to move towards. But that's something you can kind of break down. It's, hold on, I got chills. It seems to not go away. I keep seeing synchronicity. And I just find myself researching this all night. Then move towards that, because it probably is something that is alive for you. Now, it may not be alive for someone else. So don't run around asking everybody else what they think about it.
Exactly. I think that's why business is so confusing for a lot of people, because here's the webinar script that will fill your sales funnel. And then someone can go towards that. Like me, for example, I tried things for 4 years before anything clicked. And I think what it all comes down to is the magic that you're making so tactical in this alive idea concept and this framework of following the 4 signals. And it's funny to watch how easily things come to me nowadays, that I'm tuned into that frequency and that I'm looking for resonance rather than forcing myself through dissonance.
Yes.
And I would love to know more about the occurrence of magic in your business. And I call it magic, but magic is just as real as, coincidences or whatever we want to label it, synchronicities. And I'm curious, in your business, in growing Poopourri and going through all the different stages of scaling and growth and leadership, everything that you've had to navigate, there was probably so much external noise and books and how-to guides and mentors, and potentially a lot of things that were helpful, but a lot of things that didn't fundamentally resonate with your path. And what I'm most curious about right now, Suzy, is what were like a couple of magical decisions that perhaps weren't logical and didn't really make sense to the outside world, but ended up being a huge payoff, either with your team culture or with the way that you show up as a leader or the way that you market. You are so dynamic in the way that you present your company, and the brand guidelines super helpful. But I'm curious, what else has been magical in your business development that other people would look at and be like, whoa, I would never try that?
Yeah, well, there's a lot. There's magic all the time. But one example that's pretty famous was our first viral video. We were doing about $8 million a year in revenue. I was 8 years old. I was spending, I had like I just grew the company really slow. It was nice, $1 million a year. I was, profiting a couple million million, spending 12 weeks a year on Maui. And I had a pretty nice little life, And all of a sudden I get this urge inside of me, like, oh my God, we got to put the gas on. Like, it's time to go. It's time to go. And I remember my husband at the time was like, what are you doing? I said, it's time to go. Like, I feel it, everything in my body. I knew that I couldn't afford traditional advertising because we didn't have the distribution to actually make up those dollars and to justify them. And I found these rogue YouTube conversion marketing guys, and we camped out. I camped out 2 weeks in Utah, and we wrote, cast, shot, and built a website in 2 weeks with a team of 5 people. This amazing video that was not going to go viral because videos don't go viral for consumer product goods. And within a few days, we were, it was actually 2 days, we had sold all of our inventory and we were $4 million in back order. We would have had a lot more orders, but I cut because I felt bad. I was like, I can't ship these people for probably 6 months. So, for me to catch up, it was just no way. But that was one of those things that didn't make logical sense. It's like, what are you doing? Why are you banking on these rogue people and what's happening? But everything felt right to me. The second thing was our video. We made a song and we wrote a song, and I told my team, I go, let's make a music video. And they're like, what are you talking about? Like, we can't make a music video. Oh, come on. It's just rhyming words. We can do it. Take everybody to Hawaii. We come back. We have 12 pages notes. They're all upset. We don't have a song. I go, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It'll all work out. And I'm filming in LA, and the producer of the show I was on, I said, I need somebody that is a songwriter that's not signed with a label that should be. And he goes, I know this guy. He was I was a producer of The Voice. This guy's amazing. He writes jingles. You'll love him. He said, I'll connect you with him. I said, okay. 2 hours later, we're in the elevator, and he's like, Suzy. I'm like, what? And he's like, meet Chris. This is the guy I was telling you about. I'm like, oh my God. So it comes out, ends up, he's from Dallas. So those are the synchronicity signs that when something, what I call in flow or alive, that I look for. And of course, our video, millions of views later, and we had so much fun. Cameron Duddy, who did Uptown Funk, was the director of it. And it was just amazing. So those moves happen all the time where people are like, what? Like, we can't do that. Like, that's crazy. Why would a consumer product goods make a music video? And it just felt fun to me. So that's it. So when you have that level of resonance or aliveness, what happens is that brings extra energy to the party. One of the mistakes I think entrepreneurs make is you have to do it all yourself. What you don't realize when you look at resonance, again, when I told you it's 2 energy waves that are the same speed, it's 2. So one, you're 50%. The idea itself is 50%. So it's bringing 50% of the energy to the party, if you think about it. And those 2 together create more energy together. So that's why an idea that comes, it's like it will find its way and it will help you. It really does. It sounds kind of woo-woo, but it really works.
I hear you, and it's frustrating when, we have to give the disclaimer, this is woo-woo, or that sounds woo-woo, but I think that everyone is trying to wake up to the fact that woo-woo is actually much more definitive in terms of how we can operate our personal lives and our businesses nowadays by following what intrinsically feels like possibility and it feels alive, because we have so many tools at our fingertips. I mean, we are carrying around supercomputers all day, and what couldn't be possible in today's day and age. So I love that you highlighted that. And as you were talking about telling your team, hey, this is what we're going to do, and there's pushback and all that stuff, all I could think about was how fun it would be to work with you on a member of your team. I'm like, that would be the coolest work environment ever. And that's just from the outside. Yeah. And I'm curious, team culture, as you scale and as you create this living, breathing organism that is Poopourri, and that is your companies that you forecast and start and scale, what is the main make or break factor of keeping a really tight company culture and team culture as you continue to scale and rearrange roles and develop and kind of pioneer new pathways for people to grow into? I'm curious, as a leader, there's obviously a lot of pressure. If you look at it that way, there's also a lot of possibility and fun that you can have in that role. But for you, I'm curious, how have you been able to maintain a really fun and in integrity and what looks like to be a dream company culture from the outside in?
We've been through a lot with company culture. We've had great company culture and we've had not great company culture, and we're great again. But what I realized is I was hiring people to do jobs and not really hiring really independent thinkers and kind of renegades. That's what I am, right? So then I would just hire someone, whatever. I'd bring in people that were from big corporations, and they'd say, oh, we have to have systems. We have to put all this in place. And I believed that for many, many years, and watched our company culture just tank, watched everybody get lazy and get fat. And it's like, what happened? So I've recently, in the past couple of years, really blown everything up, bringing back in more people that are independent. I really believe that I started the word entrepreneur before I think it ever happened. I really believe that I hire someone to be an expert in their field, that I'm not going to tell you what to do. I really want you telling me what to do. That's why we brought you on. And that's a complete flip from most company cultures. Usually it's like, okay, you get a job, we're going to tell you what to do. I say, okay, you're in the seat. Here's what we've been doing. Tell us what we need to do. I had people in the past that weren't used to that, right? When they come from big corporations. Now we've really had a really good mix, and we have a lot of people that understand that culture, and they're really happy. So I think it's basically to know what kind of company you are. You know, we're renegade rebels. We don't follow rules. And to have your people actually match that culture. The funniest part about this is that, oh my God, my second bankruptcy, I had a recruiting website called Greener Grass, and it recruited a person's culture. It matched a person's culture to a company's culture first. So you would go online, fill out all these profile tests, and it would say, you're a match for these companies. And then it would go into the technical fit. So it's kind of funny that, you know, this many years later, I'm going back to like, oh yeah, culture. That's really important. The problem with that idea is that it was 20 years too soon. And it was also the stock market crashed, and I was in the final stages of funding. So I'm really glad. I'm really glad I don't owe somebody $5 million. That would have been really bad.
Looking back, you're like, oh, that would have been really bad if that took off, right?
Oh, it would have been really bad if I owed somebody $5 million, then it crashed.
Right, exactly.
You know, it would have been like, that would have been horrible. So I'm glad I lost it before I got their money.
Okay, so the takeaways here are hiring for company culture and using that company culture to be a filtration system for any talent that's coming your way or outbound talent search. When you're filtering through talent, or when you're identifying a new role that you need someone to sit in, what are the top 3 things that you look for in your company specifically, like your brand guidelines and who you really need them to show up as? How do you determine that?
First thing we look for absolutely in our company is what we call grit. And that's really hard to determine who has grit. Grit is a level of resilience, and you're going to push through and make things happen. You know, we look for independent thinkers. So grit, independent thinkers, you know, they've really started carving things out for themselves. And then we look for passion. You know, do they really, really love what they're doing? Do they just have a job, or does this turn them on? Because when it turns them on, it takes a lot longer to hire for that. And a lot of times people tell you it turns them on, it really doesn't. And, you know, on the side, they really want to be a musician. So, you know, it's really, it takes a lot more time recruiting and screening, but we're much happier. Everybody's happier in the end. I'd love for somebody to make a grit test. It'd be so good.
Yes, I would love that as well.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that as a spiritual, you're outspoken about so many things that I think a lot of people view as taboo, like psychedelic usage is one of them that I definitely want to touch on with you in this episode, especially since you're in a position of leadership and entrepreneurship. I think that most people are surprised to hear that that might be an option for you to enhance your leadership and personal development journey. When it comes to searching for a talent, I'm sure that as a spiritual leader, or as you come off as much of a spiritual leader in terms of someone who's pioneering new pathways to growth, you might attract a lot of spiritual people who are identifying with that online persona and saying, oh, I just want to follow my flow, and I just want to be a part of the fun. I just want to do something that feels aligned. And that is amazing. And at the same time, how do you determine whether or not that person is just following their quote unquote flow, which could switch every 3 months, or if they're here to stay? Just from your experience, have you been able to identify what some of those key factors are? I noticed that you mentioned you're slow to hire, and at the end, that ends up being the best choice. But I'm curious if you've picked up on anything else that has helped you in curating the amount of people that are in your company.
No, and I also think I'm not attached. You know, if they are turned on and this, you know, they truly love this for 6 months and then they want to go somewhere else, most people know that I really want them to do what turns them on, whether that's with us or not. We have a lot of people that leave and come back, you know, and that's great. You know, we love it. It's like, yeah, just do whatever turns you on. Sometimes it's sad, you know, you're like, oh, but, you know, I don't get really too attached to whether people stay or go. Again, it's that same thing about pushing and trying to make sure someone stays and it's almost like trying to make a relationship work instead of being in the relationship. What I do is I provide like a creative playground. And it's like, here's the playground. How much do you want to play? And how long do you want to play? That's really the question, because it's here, and as long as you play and you're having fun and we're having fun, let's keep doing this. But if at any moment, one of us isn't having fun, then that's when we need to make some changes. I almost would stop thinking about longevity and really look at the quality that someone gives within that time frame, and if they can really add value to your business and not just do a job, because you've gained, even if they're only there for 3 or 6 months.
Oh, thank you for being a queen of reframing that for the listeners out there, because we can be attached to everything, right? Most of the listeners on this podcast are starting their coaching or service providing businesses and gunning for that first 10K, 20K month, trying to get stability on their business, trying to get on their feet and find out what really drives them and what idea is going to be profitable or what they need to pivot to. And there's a lot of attachment that can happen early on to this idea that you're trying to make work. And I love that you just reframed it to a creative playground. I think that with or without a team, we can view our businesses as exactly that. And the first team member that we always have on our team is ourselves. So I love that you just added so much beautiful flavor to that and reframed it in such a sparkling way. So thank you for that.
Yeah. You're welcome.
One thing that I'm so excited to chat about, Suzy, is your openness around the conversation of psychedelic usage and hallucinogenic experiences. And you've been so open in sharing your experiences up to the fact that you've participated in, I think, over 90 ayahuasca ceremonies, and you've undergone MDMA, psilocybin, and I think ketamine therapy under the supervision of licensed therapists. And you've been using these tools for a while, it seems, to explore your consciousness. And that's something I genuinely admire about you. And I think that from the outside perspective, typically, it's a shocking thing to be open about sometimes. And then when you go deeper into it, you realize, wow, this is something that's so important to talk about for people who are wondering how they can unlock some of the subconscious programming that we've all been conditioned to believe and follow in that path. What I want to know is, what was your first time using a hallucinogenic or a psychedelic to explore your consciousness in a really intentional way? And if you can remember, what was your intention going into that experience and what was it like for you?
I tried MDMA when I was young, and I was already drinking, and then I threw up, and that was it. So I never really did drugs. I would drink and smoke a little pot every once in a while, but I was not into, the party drugs or that party scene as far as my, just who I am. And whatever you want to do is whatever you do, but that just wasn't my MO. But really, my son was in a really bad place. I'd gone on my spiritual sabbatical. I'd been at home just feeling like bliss and happy. I knew I didn't really need anything in my life. I really had found happiness within myself after my bankruptcy. And my son was in a really dark place. He was what we would probably consider like goth. He didn't believe in God. He didn't, and not that you have to, but he was just like, F everything, just really angry and bitter and in a hard place. And I really thought, I'm not going to have this kid long. And I woke up one day and I heard ayahuasca and Dustin. I didn't know what it was, Rachel. And so I go to my office and I'm typing AWA ayahuasca. This was 15 years ago. And I'm typing AWA ayahuasca. And I'm just trying to spell it. I end up on an article from National Geographic called To Hell and Back. And it's one of their top articles. And it's about a National Geographic reporter who had depression. She went down to the jungles of Peru. She drank this hallucinogenic brew with these shamans, and it cured her of her depression. So I sent the article to my son. That was on a Wednesday morning. And on Saturday morning, he was on a plane to Peru. Went down there. He was 19 years old, 2 weeks down in the jungle, no cell phone, no Wi-Fi. He calls me from Iquitos 2 weeks later, and his first words were, he's bawling. His first words were, Mom, God is real. And then he says, and I've been healed. And I was like, what is this stuff? He gets home, and I interview him like I would a guru for till 3 a.m. Okay, so what happened exactly? I'm super curious. So I went down to Peru, and a couple months later, really skeptical, kind of going, I don't know what this is. I want to check it out. And that's when, of course, the medicine kind of showed me I wouldn't have gone down there for myself, but I would have sent my son. what would happen in the medicine, because with ayahuasca, you would only do it once as a drug because you're really dealing with your subconscious mind. And those are things most of us don't want to face. That's the reason you have the dark ceremonies and you purge and poop and you're getting rid of all those demons, so to say, all the really dis-ease, the disease within our bodies. And I had a really hard life and I had a lot of things to do. So my first 35 ceremonies were really hellacious. My husband at the time kept saying, why do you keep doing these? Why do you keep going back down to Peru? But what would happen is that my internal being, I felt like I was getting back more of myself every single time. I could feel more. I started realizing really a lot about life, and I really became almost like a shaman. I thought I was going to be a shaman. I was going to move down to Peru. I was going to sell my business. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing in business. And then I had a shaman tell me, a master shaman, I said, I need to be a shaman. This is my calling. And which, everyone that goes down to Peru for an East stint does that, now I know that. But he said, it's so amazing. He taught me about energy, and he said, shamans move energy. So when a shaman's sitting in the room, they're able to help you move the dense energy that's in your being, right? That's what you want to remove so that you can feel whole and light again. And he said, shamans move energy. Money is energy, and business is the biggest form of using, biggest traffic place for money in the world. You're going to do a lot more for the world by staying in business than you will pouring ayahuasca to 20 people at a time. So that's when I really started looking at money as energy. And also, Rachel, I believe that we're always in ceremony. I don't believe we have to do the medicine. What I learned, I remember one time I came back from Peru and I was sitting at my desk and something really scary happened in business. We can fill in the blank, but I don't even remember it now, but at the time it was really scary. Most of those things we're terrified about, we don't even remember 5 years later. But I was, like someone's knocked me off or something, that was really terrifying. Right. And I'm sitting at my desk and I remember going, I'm in ceremony. There really is no ayahuasca and life. So it all became, and Luke's probably told you about this, how I kind of popped into the game of life and I was like, oh, this whole thing is a ceremony. And that's when I started realizing it kind of is a game. So I started looking at life and my experiences and business completely different.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that you just reframed it again to the game of life and everything is ceremony.
Yes.
That's a beautiful perspective because the next time you're freaking out, I'm sure that you've had plenty of experiences on these hallucinogenics of, oh, there's an opportunity to freak the fuck out right now.
Oh, what?
and in life it's just the same, right? Yes. We're just not tripping out. We think we're not tripping out. And that's beautiful. And I'm curious, how has that impacted your ability to serve and lead as an entrepreneur, as a founder, as COO, CEO, whatever you fill in your company, whatever you have to step into? What have been the top 3 things that you've taken away from ceremony and your life as ceremony to integrate into your business and leadership style?
Well, that what you do really does have impact. That's actually taken me quite a few years as a leader. I had a problem with anger. Like I would not say anything and then get really mad, which wasn't a fun environment for anyone, especially when the stresses were high. That was not fun. I actually, just this past year, went back and called 23 ex-employees from years ago and apologized to them. So lots of tears and just going, wow, that had nothing to do with you. I just want you to know I was terrified. The first thing is what you do really does have an impact. You're either going to pay for it now or later, but it really does have an impact. And we can talk about sustainability. We can talk about the way we treat people, the way we act. And that's taken me quite a while to really understand. It's taken me a lot of ceremonies to kind of go, oh, hold on, I really do have to clean this shit up. It stays stuck within your body. That's what causes disease. So that would be the first one. The second would be that there really is nothing that horrible that's going to happen that you can't get through. Really, at the end of the day, it's really kind of funny when COVID first happened, our company lost $4 million the first quarter, bottom line loss. And everybody's like, everybody's freaking out because, one of our big accounts really screwed us and decided to cancel a multi-million-dollar shipment. And they were a third of our business. And everybody's freaking out. And I just wasn't worried. I'm like, something will happen. And I just had surgery here in LA. And I heard something about hand sanitizer was, in short supply. And I called my team and I said, how quick can we get in the hand sanitizer business? And we were like, from idea to being on shelf in a retail store, it was 6 weeks. So we've sold, I think we've sold 5 million bottles of hand sanitizer. So not only we made up for that, it's like, but that's the thing. If you can just realize that there really is nothing that can happen to you externally that really affects you. So what happens with ceremony and these medicines, I believe it's training ground for life. So yes, it does heal a part of yourself. That's why you do it. But secondly, when you put yourself in such intense spaces, think about ayahuasca or ketamine or something. You put yourself in a 4 to 6 hour window. Ketamine's shorter, but you put yourself in a window. Life is sped up really fast. So it's like a training. It's like going into a racetrack and you get to do the fast loop a lot, right? So over time, you develop this agency of where you're not as affected all the time with life. So I'm not sure if the hallucinogen is actually doing anything other than speeding up life and letting you handle, you spin out and lose your shit and then able to come back and go, okay, I'm centered again.
Would you say it's kind of an acceleration tool? 100%. Consciousness.
100%. I call it biohacking. And then probably the third thing that I've learned is that a bad ceremony always ends. So even if you're in a tough situation, there's always an ending to it. There will be one day. When I was talking about my heartache, I was crying. I was on the phone with my daughter, and my daughter said, she broke up with someone a couple of years ago, and one of her friends said, because she was like, I'm just in so much pain all the time. And she said, and her friend said, one day you'll be walking down the street and you'll notice the snow on the roof of a building and you'll feel a little moment of joy. And that's when you know that you're starting to, heal again. You're over this. So that's another thing is that no matter how bad or how gnarly the ceremony or the situation, it always ends. And it always ends up okay.
I felt that.
Yeah. There's always an end. You think it's going to be forever, right? And I'm going to be in this forever. That's heartache. The reason we don't feel completely, whether it's sadness or anger or heartache, we think that feeling will last for eternity. So we avoid it at all costs. So I'm a fan of just get in there, feel it, and let's get it going.
The only way out is through.
Yeah.
Really. So there are a lot of people in my life and people that I mentor who speak about this desire to explore their consciousness, maybe using these acceleration tools, as we call them, or without using meditation or other modalities. And they're also very, very aware that they have a backlog of stress and potential trauma and things that they've just suppressed the shit out of their entire life, that they're very, very worried about coming up in these situations. And they're like, nah, just say, I'll handle that later. Right now, I just need to work. I need to focus. I need to get this shit done. And they continuously kind of backlog all of the things that are going on, even though they do desire freedom from that. Now, I don't know if psychedelics are the answer. I'm sure that we wouldn't recommend that for everyone, blanket statement.
No.
And at the same time, I'm curious, Suzy, if you mentioned that you were skeptical going into your first ayahuasca experience. And I'm curious, did any part of that have to do with any fear of the backlog that would come up for you? Or were you like, bring it on?
No
What was
way.
that like?
I was terrified.
Really?
Terrified. And I even knew that, I'd read this article called To Hell and Back. This girl went to hell, literally, in the ceremony. I'm like, I don't want to go to hell.
Well, then, Suzy, the curiosity is, why did you honestly do it? Was it that pull to liberation that was so strong?
Because I wanted freedom more than I wanted any amount of the freedom. My desire for freedom trumped any fear that I had. Every therapist I've ever had has said, oh my God, you're so courageous. I said, I don't see an option. And they said, there's always an option. But for me, my goal is freedom. So if I'm not free from whatever is inside of me, then I'm not a complete being. So it's the same thing with business. Like, I don't want to be in a business that I'm not free. I don't want to be stuck. It's really funny because I have that problem with my personal brand. I have fought this, Rachel, for so many years. I've been in the closet doing all this stuff, right? I've been like, no way. I'm not interested.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
You weren't interested in creating a personal brand?
Oh, no.
Oh, your website is so amazing, though.
The opposite.
I got to say.
Thank you. But I did not want to be stuck in any box. Again, freedom is my thing. Like, I don't want to be some Suzy Batiz that who is she and what does she do? And I'm an explorer. I'm a pioneer. I'm the person that, I call the ketamine research scientist. And he says, pioneering telesessions with ketamine. Do you want to? I'm like, you had me at the word pioneer. Like, that's what I do, right? So I didn't want to be on any box. So anyway, I've had a problem with that. Forgot your question. I got
me
off
too.
on that. Yeah.
I'm on the ride. What I'm most curious about is your personal brand, being a pioneer. What does that mean to you? And I actually resonate with you on a very deep level when you said you don't see a choice. Like, everyone's saying, you're so courageous, you're so brave, it's so awesome that you're doing this. Yeah. And you're looking at your own life like, well, this is just my path. I don't feel like I really have a choice because I wouldn't ever choose the lack of freedom. No. That doesn't make sense, right? No. So your intention moving forward and with freedom and pioneering and exploring everything that the life has to offer you, what is your mission moving forward? Are you a mission-oriented person or more of a vision or legacy or purpose-driven person? What really drives you? And I know that we talked about motivation before and how that isn't really the driver and how excitement is, but what do you want to leave behind or what do you want to blaze moving forward?
It was funny. I was doing an interview with Dave Asprey yesterday, and I said, my goal, if I had a goal, is to reach my highest evolution in this lifetime. And he said, why are you spending your whole lifetime doing that? Why don't you just do it right now? I was like, oh my God.
Ooh.
Isn't that genius?
Wow.
Genius.
I actually had this moment last week, and I was sitting in meditation, and I was like, I just need to break through this point. What's going to get me there? Do I need to talk to this therapist or this person or this coach? And then I realized in quiet contemplation, I can just decide to have a breakthrough moment right now and not have it be a glamorous, confetti flying up moment where my life changes. It can just be a decision.
Yeah.
So did you decide to become your highest evolution of yourself?
Oh, yeah. I was like, that's a great idea. I'll do that. So now I don't have any goals. I don't know. I'm just sort of still riding along. What I do is I feel excited about things. So what flipped with me when I did decide to come out and really, because I was a little bit like, how come Tim Ferriss can talk about all these psychedelics? I've been doing this for 15 years. Why can't, there's not a lot of women talking about this,
No, there's not.
And I've been like this mole person, down doing these underground things, really with blinders on, not out in the world. And I wanted to come out just so I could tell people about things that I've discovered. It's like, back in the day when, men would go out hunting and they would come back and tell of their tales of what they found. It's pioneers and explorers that say, guess what I figured out? Guess what I found? Yeah. Guess what's over there? That's the reason I decided to come out and start speaking more, because I've discovered a lot and I've found out a lot. And I want everybody to know, you're all focused on business and being an entrepreneur, but that's not really it. Okay, that is literally your internal world creates your external world. Get to work on your internal world, because that's where you move shit.
So dynamic.
Focusing on the outside world is a waste of energy, time, focus, direction. So that's like the motivation. It's like, what is the motivation? My motivation is to keep clearing inside, because the more I clear inside, the more my world outside of me changes. So that's why I do the 100 ceremonies. That's why I want to explore consciousness. I'm interested in, number one, Rachel, I'm interested in changing and changing the way we are. Let's get really, really, really real. What we've done up to this point is not sustainable. We have to make some real changes. And I'm interested in what those are. And how can I know that if I don't change my own being, how can I have hope for any part of humanity doing that? Just, it was Gandhi that said, you be the change. So I know that the world that I want to see in the future for my children, my grandchildren, starts inside me.
Love that. Love you. Oh my goodness. Yeah. So I'm picking up change, evolution, important to you. I'm also picking up that having fun along the way is very important to you as well. I want to know what, a couple things that are really, really fun for you right now that have nothing to do with business, just fun things that you love to do or explore right now.
Well, we're really, so I have a big showrunner that wants to do my life story. It's a big deal. If you got this call, you would, I just can't believe. And I was like, I don't know if they can write that story. So I'm camped out here. I don't know if you know Dustin Thomas. So he's an amazing singer-songwriter, and I've been helping him with his album. And we started writing these shows ourselves. And it's just so fun. I got to tell you, it's just super fun for me. It's like, first of all, who thinks you could write it? a Netflix series. I never thought I could write it. And he's coming up with ideas, and so I give him lines of poetry. I'll tell you a line I said the other day. I came out of a ketamine ceremony, and I said, I camouflaged myself with insecurities in order to stay hidden from your desires, because I knew I could never satisfy your hunger. And he was like, what? And I go, yeah. So I've been writing this incredible poetry. So we're really weaving this poetry into this particular series. And it's just stunning what's coming out. So it's just super fun. Like, this poetry is just kind of plopping out of me that I never thought I was a poet or even could write. So that's what's really fun for me right now. Mm-hmm. And again, I'm not attached to it. It's just like it comes out. And so I pitch him a line, and then he comes back with something. And it's like playing tennis. It's like we're kind of volleying. But also, I'm sitting here in Beverly Hills. I have this amazing house. It has I'm just looking out at the valley here. I'm literally at the highest point in Beverly Hills. I have full sunset in the back of the house, full sunrise in the front. It's like the most stunning property ever. And that's been really fun for me, is just sitting out back and just watching the sunset every day. Every day I've been here over 3 months. So I'll be here a little bit. I think I'm leaving the end of June. So I'll be here for 4 months and just really sitting and watching the valley and the sunset. I haven't done that in quite a few years.
So beautiful. I've been feeling so called to watch sunsets as well. And just it collapses and closes out the day in such a natural, organic way that no other wind down ritual can really do that for me. I hear you on that. Suzy, my last question for you before I let you go, and I just want to thank you so much for being so honest and grounded throughout this entire interview. I can tell that you take this ceremony mindset of being in ceremony so seriously, because you show up that way here. And when I see you on Instagram stories, I'm hit with this tremendous energy of integration and equal parts confidence and comfort, which I think is really special. And because you have a comforting nature, and I really pick that up from your essence, I'm curious if you can give our listeners a little dose of that for themselves, that confidence and that comfort. And if they're feeling overwhelmed by their external circumstances right now, perhaps they're quarantined with someone they're figuring out they don't like, or they just lost their job. They're really in the shit right now of figuring out, okay, nothing right now is working on the outside. Suzy had this amazing story. Rachel had this story. Other people are having this story, and I'm waiting for my moment, and I'm waiting for my time where this is really going to pick up and hit, and I'm going to be able to prove to myself that I actually can do this. What would be your transmission to that person right now listening?
Yeah, I would tell them, so you're in this situation. Does this remind you from anything in the past? And then if you notice that you've been in this situation a few times, or a version of the situation, whether it's the bad relationship, I always lose my job, I'm not chosen, whatever story you have about that, go to someone, the EMDR, some sort of therapist. Hypnotherapy is really inexpensive. We have a guy that's offering our live group $50 an hour. You can come up with $50. Really go in and reprogram your subconscious mind. From 0 to 7 years old, we are only record. That's all we're doing. You don't have your first conscious thought till you're 7. So if you have to think about the early part of your life and start thinking, where would I have gotten the idea that I could be fired, or I could be rejected, or that I'm not loved, and go in and start diving into that before you start going out into the world. Still take action and do whatever. If you don't have a job and you are the provider for food and rent, you need to work, but also do this on the side. But realize that if it's a pattern, which it probably is, then you're going to keep repeating that pattern until you go back in and reprogram it. So get serious about reprogramming. If you were in my program, if you were in a live OS, we would be doing that. We do it over 8 weeks, and you can radically change your life in literally one session, because there's some belief that really wasn't even yours, probably, that got you into your situation, and you can absolutely get yourself out. And I understand that can be triggering for some people. What do you mean? Yeah. I did blah, 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 blah. I get it. I was the biggest victim for 38 years of my life. And then once I realized that I had a little bit of control over my situation is when I actually found freedom. So that's another toss, is, are you willing to find your own freedom? Or are you really willing to look that maybe you were programmed by your parents, by society, by your life circumstances that really had nothing to do with you?
And how much is your freedom really worth to you?
And how much is it worth?
What story is really going to get you to the other side of where you want to show up?
Yeah, and fight for that.
Yeah.
Fight for that. Because
take a stand for yourself.
Yeah, because when you become successful, what I want you to do is be able to feel the money. Look how many people are rich and they're having to do drugs. You know, when you go, well, you've done a lot of hallucinogens. I have, but I do it really to feel more. I do it not the opposite, to not feel. You know, I'm sober. I don't drink alcohol. I don't do weed. I don't do anything. But I do it so I can feel more. I want to feel my wealth. I want to feel presence. I want to feel the sunset. So yeah, that's what I want for you is when you are successful is that you actually can feel your success and you can be a participant in it rather than just how did this happen and oh my God, what do? I don't know if I deserve it all. Because the hardest thing about success is not making and becoming successful. It's actually keeping the success and keep expanding your container for success.
Ooh.
Yeah,
that's why they say success is the greatest enemy of success.
It is. Yeah, my mentor has a great book. My mentor, Gay Hendricks, has a book called The Big Leap that's really good to read. And he has a commitment that he taught me. And it's, I commit to expanding my capacity for abundance, love, and joy every day as I inspire others to do the same. So every day I just keep saying that. I commit to expanding my capacity for abundance, love, and joy every day as I inspire others to do the same, because I'm way more successful than anybody in so many generations of my family. That's a big container to hold when you really think about it, not blowing it up because of all those old feelings of generational poverty and unworthiness. So you have to remember, if you have succeeded anyone in your family, you're holding a bigger space and a bigger ground than your energetic genetics have ever even made possible. So it's going to be a little harder to hold that ground. So you have to also work at that. Which is
side note from Suzy.
Side note. So just keep doing your work and keep expanding, and you will. Life will keep getting better and better. I can promise that. The more you go inside, the more you do your work, the better your life will get.
Guaranteed.
It's the formula. Guaranteed. Yeah.
I love that. So I want to leave on the note of Alive OS. Obviously, this is a live idea for you. And I signed up for the wait list. I can't wait until it comes out. But I would love for you to give a little bit more color into what inspired the creation of this program for you. It's 8 weeks long. It's about rewiring your mind, all the goodies. But what was the spark behind that for you?
Oh, this is a great story. I'm so glad you asked. So before Poopourri, I had been bankrupt probably about 4 or 5 years. I wrote this course called Inside Out, How to Create a Life You Desire by Going Within. Because, Rachel, I knew what wealth was. Even though I hadn't created any wealth in the external world, I knew what wealth was. I was rich inside. And I wanted to teach everybody. So I had 5 women take the course with me, 5 friends. Nobody finished the course. And I remember thinking, oh, I haven't made money. Like, they think that this is about financial success. About 6 months later, the idea for Poopourri came, so I've been on this track, right? So last year, probably about a year and a half ago, my company gifted me with an astrology reading. This astrologer Phyllis, says, you did something 13 years ago the world wasn't ready for, and now they're ready for it. And I look over, and my ex-husband had brought a binder over. He brought a box of things, and my assistant had put this binder on my desk. And I look over, and I went, I wrote this course 13 years ago. And she goes, yeah. She goes, the world wasn't ready yet. You're going to teach people about money and energy. I was like, holy shit. And I was like, okay. And I still didn't do anything with it. And I was in a session with JP Sears. He's my heart coach. And I love him. And JP said, I think it's a Carl Jung quote. We'll have to look at this. It's either it's probably Joseph Campbell. Yeah, Joseph Campbell. And Joseph Campbell says, the cave you fear holds the treasure you seek. And he said, what's that thing that you're so scared, Suzy, that you're terrified to even utter out of your mouth? That's been your biggest dream. And I'm snot crying, Rachel. And I say, I'm a global spiritual leader. Like I get those words out and I'm like crying. And he goes, okay. And we get through that. And he goes, what are you going to do about it? I look over and there's that binder. And I went, I'm going to rewrite this course. And I was holding this group of women entrepreneurs in my house, and I asked them, I said, hey, I told them the whole story, and I said, I want to write this course, rewrite it. Would you be willing to go through it with me as a beta? So I took 25 women through it. Every 2 weeks, I landed a lesson, and we have 8 lessons, and an intro and a ending, and all their lives changed. They loved it, and it was amazing. And this is the online version I just did. I'm taking 150 148 people through it. I was trying to max out at 100, but we had over 800 people apply. And I just did it for my social. It was really low key. And we chose 158 people to go through it. And then I will do it again to a little bit larger audience. But I'm doing the lessons every week, about an hour and a half on Thursdays. And I do like a really short Monday morning, 30-minute live session with them. And this is our third lesson this week.
Well, I want to commend you and honor you for stepping into that vision for yourself. And I want to just confirm the vision that I see you in that light, and I see that possibility so much closer than I think you could even imagine right now. And I just want to commend you to my audience as someone. I've signed up for the waitlist. I'm waiting patiently until you accept your new round of students. But I'm grateful for you expressing that and making it happen in the reality that we live in, and just giving your gift. And that's really all that we need to do in life, right? Is just give our gift and not let anything dilute that.
Yeah.
So thank you for doing that for the world and for yourself.
You're so welcome. And I'm super clear that I'm not a teacher. You know, what I know is I've created this 8-week program where I'm holding space and I'm just sharing information, and people, it's up to their own evolution, what they want to do. And it's pretty awesome to watch. You know, I can't think of a greater front row seat to be on than to watch them. I get a little teary thinking about it, you know, just to be able to watch someone really find themselves is like the greatest honor in the world. Yeah, look, I get teary.
Me too.
Yeah, it's just like, wow, like how could I have ever got here? That's the reason I wouldn't change one damn thing in my past. If it removed me from this space, oh no, I'll take it all. Yeah. So that's the truth. Well, thank you for being such a bright light. I read your story. I'm like, holy shit, this girl, like at 23, I was pregnant in an abusive marriage. And you're like a multimillionaire by 23 or something. I'm like, this is incredible. What a great spark and light you are. So keep lighting the way. We need you. The world needs you. Yeah.
Thank you, Suzy. I had a lot of help along the way. People like you diving in and sharing their gift, and me just soaking it all up. So I didn't do it alone, that's for sure.
Well, dude, the truth is, Rachel, you know, I we screwed this whole thing up. Like, and you guys are going to have to fix it. You know, I'm doing as much as I can, but you know, that's just the truth. I think every person my age or older needs to really be apologizing to the youth, kind of like, hey, you know, yeah, we kind of screwed this thing up. We got really off track, and we all have responsibility and to support you as much as possible. So thank you for giving me a place and a voice to share. I appreciate you.
I wish I could give you a quarantine hug right now.
Well, it'd have to be 6 feet apart with masks
Don't
on.
worry, guys. We're on Zoom, and I'll give you an energetic hug and just imagine me embracing you. Thank you so much for your time, Suzy. Thank you for your light. Thank you for your spirit. And thank you for being so courageous. I know it doesn't feel like you have a choice, but you are making that choice. And I just honor you for that on the deepest level and on the highest level I can. So have a beautiful day. And for those of you listening, go check out Suzy's website. You can find the link to that on paydaywithrayray.com. along with the show notes and a link to Suzy's new offer, Alive OS. And until next payday, I'll see you soon. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you did find it super valuable, you just want to share it with the world, make sure you screenshot, post, and tag me on Instagram so I can stalk your profile and we can connect more. And to get notified on the next episode here on Payday, go ahead and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes so you never miss a beat. Get out there, secure the bag, and I will see you next payday.